smell victory.
That was awesome.
I think it's coming. I see excitement. We had 1,000 people in Nashville last week. Ted Cruz had big crowds. Manny's the real deal, and I think he's got a great chance, but we got to finish this thing. Now, I came down here and I said there's at least one thing. I'm only coming, but I'm not going to wrestle Glenn Jacobs, all right? That's off the table. Now, I do know Congressman Jimmy Duncan really well. He's one of my dad's closest friends. He was one of the hardcore. You should be really proud of the job he did for many years for you. Give it up for Congressman Duncan. Now, I promise you, if any of the attack ads were true, you wouldn't see me, Ted Cruz, Levin, Jim DeMint. We are the conservatives of the conservatives. We are the remnant of the conservatives. And I'll tell you why I get involved. I think Tennessee Wilson's a Republican. But it's important what kind of Republican you say. Every day we have a fight in Washington. We know where the Democrats line up. The Democrats don't care about spending. We can spend it till the cows come home. They don't care about the deficit. The Democrats just don't care. We know that. But the problem is, on our side, we have people who come and go around the state of Tennessee or around the state of Kentucky saying, oh, the Democrats spend and borrow too much. Then they get up there and do the same thing. Does anybody remember when Republican politicians were going around Tennessee and other states saying they were going to repeal Obamacare? You remember? They said, no, give us the House. If you don't, give us the money. Vote for us and get us in charge of the House. We did. And then they said, oh, well, we can't do it with just the House. We need the Senate too. So what did you do? You gave money to Senate candidates. We got the Senate. And they said, oh, no, we need the White House. So when we had the House and the Senate, you know what we did? We voted to repeal Obamacare. What happened? President Obama vetoed it. So we came back when we got the House, the Senate, and the presidency, and we forced the exact same vote. I forced the vote. We voted the exact same bill to repeal Obamacare that we did under President Obama. But guess what? Every Republican voted for repeal under President Obama when he would veto it. But then we had all three branches. You gave us all three branches. And you know what happened? We lost 7 Republicans. You may know because some of them are from Tennessee. So this question is online. You know how I feel. I'm willing to stand up to Republicans who didn't do what they promised. So you think I'd come to Tennessee if I had any doubts? I have no doubt that if we can do it again, Manny will vote to repeal Obamacare. It's also about spending. I'm sick and tired of Republicans going up there saying, oh, the Democrats spend too much and borrow too much. We're going to be different. And then they vote for the same thing. We have spent, after the next bill comes up, which I'm going to oppose, $5 trillion in 5 months. What are we going to do in 3 more months? If the economy's still closed in 3 more months, they're going to ask for another $2 trillion and another $2 trillion. There is no end, but guess what? There are ramifications. There is a day of reckoning at which they destroy the currency and everything this country is founded on if we don't stop it. But many of these people are Republicans. It's Republicans putting forward a $1 trillion bill, and then the Democrats, they say, oh, we're conservative because the Democrats want $3 trillion. So now the conservative position is to borrow $1 trillion for a bill because the Democrats will borrow $3 trillion. We need people who will not be a rubber stamp for leadership. Republican leadership is not always conservative. Many of them are the furniture in Washington that occasionally you move around, but they do nothing. That's what we need a good Republican for. That's why we have. Checks to everybody. Now, did we get this from a rainy day account or from a savings account? Did we go to the Federal Reserve and open a big safe door and there was a bunch of money and we just passed it out to you? No, we borrowed it. First the virus came from China, now we're borrowing from China, they give you money. It's an illusion. It isn't real. It's crazy that we think we can do it. It didn't help the unemployed, but we did the unemployed too. But we also helped everybody who's still working. My father-in-law is 89 years old and a military veteran. He has a military pension and Social Security, and his house is paid for. And you know what he did? He looked at me and he says, "Why are you sending me a check?" Plus, he's not going anywhere because he's worried about getting out because they tell him not to go out. So he's got money stacked up. They should have just helped the unemployed. But instead, we gave everybody a check. Who did that? Republicans. These bad ideas came from Republicans. Then the Democrats get involved and it's twice as bad. But even before all of this, even before we got started on all the COVID borrowing bailout madness, we were already spending $1 trillion more than comes in. Every year, spent mostly on Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and food stamps. That's like 70% of the budget there. But every year we're spending $1 trillion that we don't have. $1 trillion more than comes in. What do we spend it on? Number one of my grievances is we send it to countries that don't even like us. We send it to countries who burn our flag and chant death to America. I say not one penny more. But that's easy to say. We need somebody who'll go to Washington and actually do it. Almost every Republican up there votes for foreign aid. When I stand up and oppose foreign aid to these other countries, many of them who hate us and burn our flag, and the president's with me on this, you've heard him, the president's absolutely with me on this, he gets no support. Most of the establishment, most of the furniture of the Republican Party doesn't support the president, doesn't support cutting spending. This primary makes a difference. You've got to help me bring Manny Sethi to Washington. Anybody remember William Proxmire? In the early 70s, he had an award he called the Golden Fleece Award. His first award that he gave was to the National Science Foundation because they had spent $50,000 of taxpayer money trying to determine why people fall in love. And I know that's a really interesting topic for maybe Vogue or Esquire, but it's not a real interesting topic for my tax dollars. So he gave that. And so fast forward almost 60 years from there, last year the National Science Foundation, because of inflation now, spent $500,000 trying to determine if you take a selfie of yourself while smiling, whether or not if you look at that later it'll make you happy. Whether you'll be a happier person if you look at it. It's like, well, couldn't we have just told the audience? NIH spent $2 million studying whether when you go to the cafeteria, if the person in front of you sneezes on the food, whether you're more or less likely to take a bite of that food. We probably could have polled the audience on that one. One of my favorites is this. $300,000 to study Japanese quail to see if they're more sexually promiscuous on cocaine. You think? But see, as much as you laugh and as much as you say, well, all the Republicans tell me they're against that, not one of them. I put forward these amendments all the time to cut the funding for National Science Foundation. Usually I put forward the modest and moderate proposal of only getting rid of half of their budget. I can't get any Republicans to support. But what we need is a doctor who says, yeah, the government has some role, but we want real research. We're not going to pay for this anymore. I think Manny will stand up with me. On the issue of war, I think there is no greater decision that any elected representative ever has to make is whether we send your sons and daughters to war. No more important decision, no more grave decision, nothing more important that we should spend and deliberate time on. The Constitution made it clear. It said we only go to war when Congress sends us to war. So after 9/11, my dad voted for it, and I would have voted for it also, to go to Afghanistan, punish the people who attacked us, and make sure it didn't happen again. But within about a year, it morphed into something else. We've killed everybody over there, and there are people over there now fighting who weren't even born. Our soldiers are fighting now that weren't even born. But the Constitution says Congress declares this. But we declared it in 2001. Everybody in Washington says, well, that's good, we don't need to vote again. In fact, they not only say it's good for the war in Afghanistan, they say it's good for war anywhere. We lost 8 soldiers in Mali the other day, and we had to look at the map to figure out where Mali was. We knew it was in Africa, but we didn't know exactly where it was, and we didn't know what the war was about. They were chasing some goat herder in Mali who was unhappy and probably was a radical Islamist, but he may have been fighting other radical Islamists for all I know. But I don't know what our dog in that fight is, and I don't know why we don't vote whether we go to war. But President Trump, for the first time in my lifetime, we have a Republican in the White House who's willing to say it needs to end, we need to bring the troops home from Afghanistan. And it's not just about the lives. The lives are obviously the most important thing. But you know what's also important is our treasure. We spend $50 billion a year in Afghanistan. You know what we're doing? We're building their roads. Once we build their roads, they can't take care of their roads, so we maintain their roads. We built a natural gas station. Raise your hand if you have a car that runs on natural gas. We don't have cars that run on natural gas. They don't have cars that run on natural gas. But you know what? Someone decided that the Green New Deal was part of the Pentagon policy. For the last 10 or 20 years, we haven't just been defending the country, we've been promoting green policy, climate change with the military. So we got this natural gas station over there to reduce their carbon input. Guess what? They cook their food on open fires over there. This is not going to be happening anytime. So we built this gas station. It was supposed to cost $500,000. It ended up costing $45 million. That's fairly good for the government. It was only 83 times cost overrun. 83 times what they promised. So a $45 million gas station to have cars that run on natural gas to reduce their carbon footprint. Well, guess what we discovered? They don't have any natural gas cars, so we had to get some more money. We spent a couple more million to buy them 24 natural gas vehicles to reduce their carbon input. But then it turned out that not only did they not have cars that ran on natural gas, they didn't have any money, so we had to get credit cards for all of them. And then despite all of that, you know what the gas station looks like now? Have you ever seen when a work site is ransacked and people stolen all the copper and it's just a mess? That's what the gas station looks like now. It's non-functioning. I wanted my staff to see it on a mission to look at the waste in Afghanistan. The military says it's too dangerous to go and we don't know what it looks like now. Which I can understand the perspective, but why do we keep doing it? Year in, year out. We spend more in Afghanistan than the Marshall Plan for Europe. Good money after bad. Yes, that's another point. And that leads me to my second evidence in waste in Afghanistan. We built a $90 million luxury hotel across from our embassy. The only problem is the guy that got the $90 million ran off with it. He's now living in Jordan. I'm sure he's living very well, but he didn't finish his job. So the hotel's half built. You have the floors and no walls. So guess what? It's a 4 or 5 story building that looks down on our embassy. Anybody think there might be a security problem? So the Taliban and snipers used the building to shoot at our embassy, so we got to patrol it. So our young men and women are risking their lives and their limbs to monitor this building. So really, my job here today, they told me they needed more money. So if you'll all give about $1,000 a piece, I've got a bag. I'll come around the bag in a minute. We need it because we need your money now to blow up the hotel. It's going to cost about $200,000 to tear it down. Karzai was the president for like 10 years. His brother was a drug dealer. We spent $8 billion trying to eradicate the poppy. That's what they make heroin from, this flower in Afghanistan. Guess what happened last year? Best crop ever. So I have a friend who's a congressman from Northern Kentucky, Thomas Massey, who's really good. He's one of the smartest guys you ever meet, but he's kind of country too. And he said, well, if you'd have given me the $8 billion, I could have bought a lot of Roundups. But they were afraid that would make them mad, so we never did that. We need help. All of these things are happening under Republican watch. So when President Trump said he was going to move 200 people in Syria out of the way of 100,000 Turkish troops that were mobilizing on the border, I thought it was a good idea. It was a smart thing, and really, he had no choice. We had 200 troops there. What happened? Immediately, the Republican leadership in the Senate passed a resolution. They didn't condemn him by name, but essentially they did condemn the president. And they said that not only should we never leave Syria, we should never leave, or we cannot leave Afghanistan because it would be precipitous. And my point is, yeah, 20 years, that's precipitous. We've been there 20 years. But we have to have people who stand up. The status quo has changed under this president. This president has really transformed the Republican Party and allowed viewpoints like mine and my father's and Glenn's and Congressman Duncan to come more to the forefront, where we're not questioning whether we should be strong, not questioning whether we should defend America, but questioning whether we have to always be involved, and is it forever? The president in his State of the Union address last year said that great nations don't fight perpetual wars. I couldn't agree more.
Bring our voice home.
And the only statement that rivaled that was the other statement where he said, America will never be a socialist nation. I'm so glad you came out here today to support my friend Manny Sethi. We need something different. You know, I'm not out here to condemn the other guy, but we just need something different. We need something stronger. We don't need a rubber stamp for leadership. We need someone who will stand on their own 2 feet, try to defend the Constitution, to defend your values. Somebody who grew up in rural Tennessee and knows where a lot of us came from. This is the time. It's really, really close. Do you know that about a month ago, I don't know exactly, I bet you he was down 20 points a month ago. Do you know he's either dead eating or ahead right now? I promise you this does not happen accidentally though. You have to vote, but you need to get votes. Get on the phone, call people. The pastor mentioned this, you have much more power than you think. We also have a lot of power, those of us who care about our country, because you showed up. Most people in your community won't show up, not because they're not supportive, they just won't take the time to show up. You showed up. Help them with phone calls. Money's always important, but to tell you the truth, phone calls. You don't have money, make phone calls. Call and get your neighbors out. Call and tell them individually about Manny. We've got a real shot here. The country needs this. We can't go on. Just having a Republican versus Democrats is not enough, because half of them don't believe in the Constitution. Half of them are big spenders. We've got to have something better. I would not be here today if I didn't really believe Manny Sethi was the answer. Please help me to support my friend, Manny Sethi.